Yes, one of the problems is majorities of our women come from a system, cashless society, not educated. They have got triple sort of barriers getting into a process. We have got full responsibility. Everyone educated has a responsibility to take some action to move forward. But what I say is, I'm glad I heard saying we are educated. Now our education should reflect in every debate that goes in this country. If we don't contribute, if we don't put our share of views into this, one side is the equation and always will be one side. So for what I think is, yes, we know what it is and we have to put into it. Otherwise, it's always one side. And that has been the case and that will remain the case if we, the educated, not contributing towards it.
Thanks, Dr. Ahmed.
Can I just quickly say that we don't have actually a good track record in terms of promoting not only just women, but also young people. Berhan and myself have been, I guess, in this space for quite some time, and I think one of the responsibilities that we should take on is also promoting young people so that the future generation can take responsibility for what should be the future generation's issues. I mean, you can only do so much in this space, and there comes a time that you need to have actually succession planning. One of the things that we should be doing is promoting women to be leaders of the community, to be advocates of the community, as well as young people. Thank you.
Front. So.
Just say channel member. We come back home, we keep referencing back home, and we forget that back home Africa is a matriarchal society. But when we come here, it's very patriarchal. And that's one thing, through institutions like yours or through other programs.
I'm sorry, you misunderstood, because what I said was our mothers coming from Africa. That's what I was referring, not over majority of the women who are young.
So they're only uneducated in Africa? Are you saying we receive education once we arrive?
As Sister said, we come from patriarchal systems. Patriarchal systems, sorry. But that's what we are, and that's what we come. So once we come here, when we see most of our young mothers are struggling, and I have been to many of these as a first-hand experience. What I'm trying to say is here, we need to empower our women. There is no doubt about it. We need to work hard to get that to change here. Especially now, to be honest with you, one thing that I see at university myself is a lot of young girls and very minimum number of boys. And that's encouraging. Our girls are doing well. And I hope our boys will do well as well. So the question is, how do we empower the community? As a community, we have got crisis. I said many challenges, but we all are not resourced. We're trying to do many things, but we don't have the resource to do it. But no doubt our women need support. And they're caring for, very important, bringing up the kids. And more than that, they need to be educated now. We need to give them opportunity to be in a place. Thank you. Well, I have got a graph that I can show you. This is studies done on arrivals from Africa, educational levels, and this is recorded information that I'm talking. So what I'm saying is, it's not, I don't want to label anyone, but what I'm saying is, this is the fact that we are coming, because we're talking about the crisis facing us, the challenge facing us.
Training and on the different communities is going on in the police right now, Tim. How are people that are working within these specific community groups, how are they trained so they can come to these sort of conclusions that there is a hugely diverse number of communities within Africa?
Well, it's not just within Africa. There's 200 diverse communities in Victoria alone. So it's a very multicultural community. We have the same challenges around references to Islam. There's an assumption, particularly in the white Australia, that Islam is all one nationality, whatever that might be. But the question was what are we doing around, we laugh that if you don't come from an Islamic country and you don't understand Islam, then there's some of the assumptions that get made, and you hear it reflected in the media all the time. the training we get, we're never going to cover all the cultures, all the nationalities, all the religions that make up Australia, let alone the world. So what we do is expose people within their first couple of weeks at the academy to a range of people from different communities. People from the Horn of Africa, from Lebanon, from Vietnam, wherever it might be. And these are community representatives who come in and talk to the recruits about their experiences, try and give them experience in that. We have our own multicultural liaison officers, our community engagement inspectors throughout the organisation. But learning about a single culture probably isn't productive. I think what we find is more productive is about understanding diversity and welcoming diversity. Because there's always going to be, we're talking about nationality and that aspect of culture, but there's gender, there's religion, there's as many ways of counting diversity as there are different cultures. So the challenge for us is having people who are very comfortable with working with people from all walks of life. So, and it's an ongoing challenge, it's not a simple one. So we're talking about now people who've come from the refugee camps around Africa and that area of the world, but we're also increasingly seeing people from Afghanistan and from those areas now as arrivals. In recent couple of years, we've people come from Burma, Thailand, so the Kara and the Chin people, again, different groupings. So there's always a challenge. One of the strengths of Australia is that we've always been able to welcome new communities in. We're having challenges now, we're talking about those challenges, but invariably we overcome them, and there's the next wave of immigrants that we need to work with to make sure that Australia stays multicultural and as peaceful as it is.
Karen, from the position of the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commissioner, the fact that everyone gets lumped together as Africans, but there's huge diversity within the African community, what's the Commission's stance and how do you mitigate that?
Look, it's sort of interesting because we're doing a piece of work at the moment with the Aboriginal community in Victoria who have the same argument with us about, we talk about a homogeneous Aboriginal community like it exists. And in Victoria there's 100 different communities that make up the Victorian Aboriginal population. So I completely agree that lumping people in essentially gives us a way out of actually dealing with people's individual diversity. The human rights framework, I think, as we all know, is about not dealing with people as groups, not dealing with them as stereotypes, but dealing with them as individuals. That may be more difficult for us, but it's an obligation that we have under the law. And I guess I also do some work with Multicultural Arts Victoria, and having had them talk to me about the very different experiences of the Ethiopian community, the Burundi community, the Sudanese community, I think going back to the point that Victoria is very diverse and that gives us some advantages in that I think there is a very good understanding of some of that diversity, but how do we ensure that that language doesn't, I guess, abrogate our responsibilities to deal with the individual, the individual issues that we keep coming up against in this sort of situation where a comment is made in the press about the African community and everyone gets tarred with the same brush, so to speak. So it's a challenge for us, and I have to say it's one that we certainly talk to the police about, but talk to a whole range of organisations about, because the whole purpose of our sorts of laws is this notion of you don't discriminate, you've got an obligation not to discriminate, but you do have an obligation to understand and provide a culturally safe or a non-discriminatory framework for the provision of services, no matter what those services are.
Can I say here also the problem is for me with the education system, the curriculum in this country, and this is where we have to have an input, because 23 years ago we started an African village. We need to educate also, we have a responsibility. We know what Africa is and we need to bring Africa here. We have to celebrate our cultures, we have to show people where our backgrounds are, and we have to include in the, well, we start to start committee for curriculum in our ATT, but we didn't go far. But the way I see forward for us is to try to put something in education curriculum, because these growing young kids are tomorrow's leaders, These growing young kids are tomorrow's police. This is where we need to think. What happened to us should not happen to our kids. So it is a vision that we need to take, each one of us, a responsibility to contribute, either by arts, cultural festivals, education systems, but we need to educate, and it is our responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the police. Asians were the same. Europeans comes to some certain degree. We want our identity. Let's bring it on the surface. Let's educate the people.
Thanks, Dr. Ahmed. That's great. Very good comment. Last question on, and we've got to turn back to women.
If I could say, we will keep going here, but what I want to say is, yes, there are mistakes. And I'm not shy to say, we've got limited ability to contribute, and we're doing. And I invite you, we've got African Think Tank Forum coming, come and join us and contribute, please. Because for me to do everything, I know my limitation. I need your help, and I need your contribution in moving forward. Absalom has got an organization, come and help. What we need is now those girls who are now in place, please come out and tell us what to think or what are we're doing wrong. Because we are human, we make mistakes, yes. We learn, yes. But let's work together. It's not a silver bullet that we will find it tomorrow. We're making mistakes, yes, but we need your contribution. And as I said, in this civilized society now, articles, the Age is telling us every day, the Herald Sun is telling us every day. Let's put ourselves into that. There is women's issue that we need to bring onto the surface. Let's do it, all of us. Let you tell us also what we don't see. And I'm happy to learn. I'm ignorant, well, be it, but I need to learn. Tell me what is missing, and I'm happy to learn, and let's put ourselves together working for the future.
Okay. Thank you. All right, that wraps up the female side of things. We move on to our third topic. We've only got half an hour to go. This topic is multiculturalism and the integration of first and second generation Africans and the challenges with both those two groups.
Thank you. And if I can also put myself as an example in what you said. Australia in the 20th century was free education, universal healthcare. Probably Tim or Karen would know more about this. All our politicians were educated on free education. In the 90s, the new system came, well, late 80s, when I started to do my master's. At La Trobe University, the HECS started. I did my education with no sort of money that I paid for education. I'm standing at Melbourne University now, which is the highest in terms of this. If you say I'm graduate of Melbourne University, in the market you get something. But the amount of money that you need to invest is nearly a house that the family can buy. Now, the problem is, as a society, and this has been one of the questions always raising, when Africans now are compared against the previous refugees coming into this country, unfortunately, in the 20th century, the manufacturing economy helped people to work, to give their kids a place in the school, with free education at the time even. They were able to work, to get employment for themselves, and to send their kids to school. 21st century Australia has...
Very quickly, I don't think so we need more tests, to be honest. I think citizenship through test is probably the wrong policy. I certainly don't believe that people should be subjected to a test on values. I think most people would have values that they appreciate. Most people would bring values, and I think certainly a lot of people that I came with when I came here, and a lot of people that I work with from different backgrounds bring values of integrity, values of honesty. It's not something that you can trace through a paper. I don't believe that.
Thanks, Absalom. Yes. Okay. How do you know when someone has been from being non-integrated to integrated? I think that's probably a tough question for Tim. It wouldn't really be in SWOC. Yeah.
Do you want anyone else in the room?
It's not your best.
We want to save you for the big ones.
Integration is a problem word for us. I think it's always implied that you pick up all aspects of whatever an Australian culture is. My observation is we don't want integration. We want people to be Australian but enjoy their own culture and history.
What does that mean?
Well, if you look at, I was trying to give you an example. So if you look at the Islander people, their traditions might be around church. Now, if they want to choose to continue church, in this case it's a Christian church, they should be able to do that. They also have different ways of celebrating, different times of the year, different sorts of family events. Those sort of rich cultural aspects are very important to this community. So I think integration applies that you do everything the way the white Anglo-Saxon person has done it. And I don't think that's helpful at all.
I think the term is assimilation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was the previous term. Okay, Red.
So I didn't know the answer to that one. You should have taken
Dr. Barnard. In red.
Yeah, hi. My name's Kate. I'm a school teacher in the western suburbs, and when I started teaching about 6 years ago, I realised, because I had African students in my classroom for the first time, that my own knowledge was very deficient on African. Being a history and geography teacher, I want to make sure that students learn something about their own backgrounds. And I've begun an investigation. I've been in contact with Beth, haven't I? I really think that students aren't exposed to a very positive or constructive view of Africa at all, and I think that's damaging both for our African students, our African Australian students, and our non-African students, because the depictions of Africa are often Africans as homogenous. Africa is in need of help. Often it's posed as Western help. Even textbooks that are coming out now are using terms like, we need to help them with baby steps and all these kinds of really anachronistic terms. And I've actually been looking at textbooks. There's been a decline in the way Africa has been represented. There was actually better representations of modernity and diversity in Africa in the 1970s and 80s. And this is a really big problem, I think, and I think a lot of what we've been discussing tonight, we need to be talking about schools as the places where students aren't getting, or children aren't getting opportunities, and parents need to understand more the school system. The whole justice thing, I think, links to this. And I think teachers are it's a very white profession, and teachers themselves are very ignorant, and I think we need to start talking about how to make sure teachers understand more about Africa, so they don't just... So, yeah, I'd like to start more dialogue about that. I don't know if people want to respond.
If we do a summation, we're coming to the last hour. Mackie?
Yeah, I just want to say I would have liked to see somebody from immigration on the panel, because I think the problem starts the minute, immigrants arrive here. There is no a transitional process in place for people who come from refugee camps and from the countryside and stuff. We've never been to a big city like Melbourne City. They just brought here, thrown into the deep end, and I guess told to find their way. So I think when we came here, it was a little easier because there were people from our background to help us settle. Let's say with the South Sudanese people, when they came here, they came in a big group, and there weren't many of them here to support them, adjust. And, the system should have done, I guess, better in preparing, I guess, a system to help them, settle into Australian society, rather than expecting somebody who's lived in a refugee camp for 12 years to come here and, find a job, go to uni, and, live the Australian dream or something. So,
Yes, hi. I'm also a teacher from the western suburbs, and a few of my ex-students are here in the audience tonight, so I just want to acknowledge the fantastic work that they've been doing in the last few years. I'm very proud of them. But I'd just like, I guess, 2 points picking up on what Marky said about why isn't there someone from immigration on the panel, but also what my colleague Kate here said about someone from education. I mean, it might be an opportunity to have another panel, if you look at the way forward, to have those voices and have voices of young people on the panel as well. So I think that's, you know, a positive way forward and preventative. And there's just one other thing I wanted to just throw out there. We're talking about multiculturalism. I spent some time in Canada recently, and there's a movement there. You know, I mean, Canada was once hailed as an exemplar of multiculturalism. You know, bringing out policies and so on in the Western world, anyway. But they're moving. Well, there is a movement, not now under the Harper government, but. Again, because of lack of funding, but there's a movement towards an anti-racism framework rather than a multiculturalism framework. And it is a different, picking up on your point, it is a different way of framing the picture, framing what's going on, to actually name it and say, you know, we're moving towards a society that's anti-racism, that we're against racism rather than multiculturalism, because multiculturalism can be a soft term. You know, it can be about festivals and sporting competitions. Cooking. You're not actually looking at how people are disempowered and marginalised. Yeah. So it's just perhaps a different way of framing it.
Okay, excellent point. Front.